I never thought my life would unravel in such a catastrophic way. I was happily married to Sarah, my high school sweetheart, for 6 years. We had built a comfortable life together, filled with shared dreams and laughter. Our relationship felt solid, at least it did until that fateful Thursday. That morning began like any other. I woke up early, brewed coffee, and made breakfast while Sarah got ready for work. But there was something in the air, a tension that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Sarah was unusually quiet, glued to her phone as she scrolled through messages with a furrowed brow. I dismissed my unease, chalking it up to a busy workday ahead. After all, she was a marketing manager, and I knew how stressful her job could be. As the day dragged on, the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach grew stronger. I texted her a few times during the day, but she only replied with vague one-word answers. I decided to surprise her with dinner that evening, a gesture I hoped would lift her spirits. When I returned home, a familiar dread settled over me. Sarah's laptop was open on the kitchen table, the screen illuminating a dark secret. I hesitated, guilt gnawing at my conscience, but curiosity took over. Leaning closer, I noticed a message notification that made my heart stop. I can't stop thinking about you. I miss you. My breath caught in my throat as panic surged through me. Who was she texting? My mind raced and dread turned into something darker. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It felt like a gut punch, each word a dagger plunging deeper into my heart. When Sarah finally walked through the door, her smile faltered the moment she saw my expression. She tried to greet me, but I cut her off. "Sarah, we need to talk." Her face turned pale, and for a brief moment, I could see the panic flicker in her eyes. "What's wrong?" she asked, but I could tell she already knew. "Who's the person you miss?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. She hesitated, her lips trembling. "What are you talking about?" "I saw the message on your laptop. Don't lie to me, Sarah." My voice was firm, a mix of anger and betrayal boiling just beneath the surface. The room went silent as she processed my words. "Nick, please, I can explain." But her voice was shaky, and I could sense the weight of guilt hanging in the air. "Explain what? That you've been cheating on me?" The accusation slipped out before I could stop it, and I watched as her face fell. With who? A coworker? A friend? Her silence was deafening. Then with a choked breath, I realized the truth that had been gnawing at me. "It's Mark, isn't it? My brother, the one person I had trusted implicitly." The color drained from her face. "Nick, I couldn't hear her excuses over the roaring in my ears. My brother?" The betrayal felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I staggered back, as if the ground had been pulled from beneath me. "How could you?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "You knew how much he meant to me. He's my brother." "Nick, please," she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It just happened. I never meant for it to go this far." "Never meant for it," I scoffed. "You think that makes it okay? You crossed a line that can't be uncrossed." I stormed out, the need for answers propelling me to Mark's place. I couldn't wrap my head around the betrayal, the sense of disbelief weighing heavily on my shoulders. As I drove, I replayed memories of my brother, our childhood, our bond. How could he betray me like this? When I arrived at Mark's apartment, I knocked furiously, my fist pounding against the door. He opened it, surprise morphing into panic when he saw my expression. "Nick, what's going on?" "Don't act like you don't know," I snapped, pushing past him into the living room. "I know about you and Sarah. How could you do this to me?" His face fell, the guilt washing over him like a tidal wave. "Man, it wasn't supposed to happen. I swear." "Wasn't supposed to happen," I echoed, incredulous. "You think it's a mistake to sleep with my wife? You've shattered my trust." Mark's eyes darted around the room, searching for the right words, but I wasn't interested in his excuses. "You've ruined everything. You've betrayed me in the worst possible way. Nick, just listen to me. It didn't mean anything. It was a moment of weakness," he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. "A moment of weakness? That's your excuse?" I spat, my anger bubbling over. "I can't believe you would do this to your own brother. You knew how much I loved her." Mark dropped his head, shame flooding his features. "I'm sorry, man. I never wanted to hurt you. We never meant for it to go this far. I turned away feeling sick. I needed to leave, to escape the suffocating atmosphere of betrayal. I stumbled outside, my heart racing as I fought back tears. The following weeks were a blur of anguish and disbelief. I moved into a temporary apartment, drowning my sorrows in work and leaning on friends who didn't know the full story. Sarah reached out, her messages filled with apologies and pleas for forgiveness, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Every time my phone buzzed, it felt like a reminder of the wound that was still fresh. In therapy, I began to unpack the chaos swirling in my mind. My therapist urged me to express my feelings: anger, hurt, confusion. I started journaling, pouring my thoughts onto the pages as a way to cope. Each entry became a small release, a way to confront the betrayal and the reality of my situation. As the weeks turned into months, I slowly began to piece my life back together. I threw myself into work, focusing on projects that had once excited me. I started running again, using the physical exertion to release pent-up anger and frustration. I began to feel a flicker of hope that I could rise from the ashes of this betrayal. One day, while sorting through old boxes in my new apartment, I stumbled upon a photo album filled with memories of Sarah and me, our wedding day, vacations, moments of joy. As I flipped through the pages, the memories washed over me, bittersweet and painful. I felt the weight of loss settle heavily on my chest. Despite the heartache, I resolved to reclaim my life. I sought out friends who lifted my spirits and reminded me of my worth. Slowly, I began to open up about what had happened. Their support became a lifeline, helping me navigate the storm of emotions that threatened to consume me. Meanwhile, Sarah's attempts to reach out continued. She would call, send messages, and even show up at my workplace. "Nick, please, just let me explain," she would say, tears streaming down her face. But each time I felt the anger rise within me. I couldn't bear to look at her without feeling the betrayal. One evening, as I sat in a cafe with friends, my phone buzzed with a message from Mark. My heart raced as I read his words. "We need to talk. I'm sorry for everything." I felt a surge of conflicting emotions: anger, sadness, and a deep-seated betrayal. Part of me wanted to confront him, to make him feel the pain he had caused, but another part wanted to move on. After some thought, I decided to meet him. We arranged to meet at a quiet park, a neutral ground away from the chaos. When I arrived, Mark was already there, looking somber. The moment our eyes met, I could see the guilt etched across his face. "Nick," he began, his voice shaky, "I know I messed up. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know how sorry I am." "Sorry doesn't cut it, Mark. You broke my trust in the worst way possible." "I can't believe you would do this to me," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside. "I regret it every day. I never wanted to hurt you. I was weak, and I let it get out of hand," he confessed, his eyes pleading for understanding. "But you knew how much I love Sarah. You've destroyed our family," I shot back, my heart heavy with betrayal. "I don't know how we can ever go back to being brothers after this." Mark's shoulders slumped, and he looked away. "I understand if you can't forgive me. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I miss my brother." I shook my head, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. "I need time, Mark. Time to heal, to figure out what this means for us. Right now, I can't even look at you without seeing her face." After that conversation, I felt a sense of relief mixed with lingering pain. I was beginning to carve out a new life for myself, one where I wasn't defined by betrayal. I started focusing on my own happiness, exploring hobbies I had put aside, and reconnecting with old friends. I even ventured into the dating world cautiously. I met a woman named Laura at a mutual friend's party, and we hit it off instantly. She was smart, funny, and had a warmth that made me feel alive again. But as I navigated this new relationship, I found myself hesitant to fully open up. The scars of betrayal were still fresh, and I wasn't sure I was ready to let someone new in. Meanwhile, Sarah continued to reach out, her messages a constant reminder of the past. One day I received a text that made my heart race. "I miss you. I'm so sorry for everything. Can we talk?" I sat in silence, staring at my phone, my emotions swirling. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to remind her of the hurt she had caused, but another part of me longed for closure. I agreed to meet her at a cafe, the same place where we had shared countless memories. When I arrived, Sarah was already sitting at a corner table, her face a mask of regret. The sight of her made my heart race. I could see the pain in her eyes as she looked up at me. "Nick, thank you for coming," she said, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "What do you want, Sarah?" "You've hurt me more than I thought possible. I need to know why." "I know I messed up," she began, tears welling up in her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. I felt so lost, and Mark was there for me in a way that I didn't expect." "Is that supposed to be an excuse?" I asked, anger bubbling to the surface. "You had a choice, Sarah. You could have come to me. Instead, you chose to betray me with my own brother. I know, and I regret it every day. I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I let it happen," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I was so scared of losing you, and instead, I ended up pushing you away." As I listened to her words, I felt a mix of anger and sympathy. She was right about one thing. I had felt her distance growing in the months leading up to the affair, but that didn't excuse her actions. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Sarah," I replied, my voice low. "You shattered my trust, and I can't just forget that." "I understand," she said, her gaze dropping to the table. "But I want you to know that I'm truly sorry. I miss the life we built together, and I want to make amends if you'll let me." I studied her face, searching for any sign of sincerity. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my heart heavy. "I want a chance to show you that I can change. I want to rebuild what we had," she replied, her voice earnest. "But can we ever go back to what we had?" I asked, my heart aching at the thought. "I don't know," she admitted, her eyes glistening with tears. "But I want to try." I left the cafe feeling more conflicted than ever. The weight of the past was heavy on my shoulders, but I couldn't deny the spark of hope that had begun to flicker within me. Could I truly rebuild what we once had, or was I just setting myself up for more heartbreak? Days turned into weeks as I wrestled with my feelings. I met Laura again, and we grew closer, but I couldn't shake the memories of Sarah. The echoes of laughter, love, and ultimately betrayal haunted me. I had to make a choice, and it felt like I was standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. Eventually, I realized that I needed to prioritize my own healing. I focused on my relationship with Laura, allowing myself to enjoy moments of joy and laughter. I started to find pieces of myself that I had lost in the whirlwind of betrayal. I began to feel alive again. But then one evening, I received another message from Sarah. "Can we talk? I think I need to tell you something important." My heart raced, anxiety creeping in. What could she possibly have to say that would change anything? I agreed to meet her, but I was prepared for the worst. When I arrived at the cafe, Sarah looked more anxious than ever. "Nick, thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice trembling. "What's going on?" I asked, my heart pounding. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her eyes searching mine. "I need to be honest with you about something else. I was with Mark last week, and I think it was the last time." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted to tell you that it's over between us. I realize that I can't keep trying to hold on to something that isn't there anymore," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. The confession left me speechless. I had been prepared for more lies or a plea for forgiveness. But this? I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. "Are you okay?" I asked, my heart aching for her despite everything. "I will be. I just want you to know that I truly am sorry for everything. I hope you can find happiness again," she said, her voice breaking. In that moment, I saw a glimmer of the woman I had fallen in love with. Despite the hurt, I realized that I still cared for her. But it wasn't enough to erase the betrayal. "I hope you find peace too, Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "But I need to focus on my own healing now. I can't go back to what we had." She nodded, understanding the finality of my words. As we parted ways, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I was moving forward, ready to embrace whatever came next. With Laura by my side, I began to envision a future filled with possibilities. It wouldn't be easy, and the scars of the past would always remain, but I was determined to forge my own path. As I continued to navigate the complexities of love and trust, I learned that while betrayal could shatter relationships, it could also pave the way for new beginnings. I was learning to embrace life's possibilities, knowing that I was the author of my own story, one that was filled with resilience, growth, and hope. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that I had the strength to overcome the darkest of times. My journey wasn't over. It had just begun.